Boris Ruge, ambasador karriere i Gjermanisë dhe zëvendës kryetar i Konferenca për Siguri e Mynihut, thotë se deklarata e presidentit të Serbisë për mundësinë e shpërthimit të një konflikti në Ballkan, ngjashëm me atë në rajonin e Nagorni Karamakut, është retorik e rrezikshme që krijon tensione. Në një intervistë ekskluzive për KosovaPress, ambasador Ruge tha se Vuçiqit është në një situatë ku mund të sigurohet që të mos shpërthej konflikti, sepse nuk sheh ndonjë gjë që Kosova mund të bëjë që do të provokonte konflikt mes dy shteteve. Ambasador Ruge foli edhe për pritjet që Bashkimi Evropian i ka në raport me administratën e presidentit të ardhshëm amerikan Joe Biden, si dhe përpjekjet e përbashkëta për normalizimin e marrëdhënieve mes Kosovës dhe Serbisë. Ambasador Ruge e sheh si jetike bashkëpunimin në mes SBA-s dhe BE-s për të minimizuar ndikimin e Rusisë në Ballkan, që sipas tij kjo e fundit nuk ka qenë dobi prurse në proceset e perspektivës evropiane të Kosovës dhe Serbisë.
Now, Mr. Ambassador, we have recently witnessed a decline in the relations between the United States and the European Union. In your opinion, are we to expect a revival of these relations? That is, a comeback of the values and the years-long established forms of cooperation between the two?
So, obviously, Joe Biden is the president-elect. He is someone we know well in Europe. And the big difference between President Trump and President-elect Biden is that President Trump saw Europe as a bit of a rival to the United States of America, whereas Joe Biden emphasizes that Europe is a very close partner of the United States and that he wants to reach out to the European Union and its member states, including countries like Germany, and work together with those actors in Europe to tackle the big issues that are ahead of us.
To this day, there are no signs that the newly formed Biden administration will give up the goal to normalize the situation between Kosovo and Serbia, which was an initiative of the Trump administration. Nonetheless, on the other hand, the European Union has not yet shown any inclination to support these processes. What do you presume will happen now?
So basically, we had two tracks, and to some extent they were going on in parallel, because as you know, the European Union has been involved in this effort to bring Kosovo and Serbia together and to normalize relations. Now, I think many in Kosovo feel, and perhaps in Serbia as well, that the European Union didn't do such a great job, that it was too slow, that it didn't deliver on certain things. Maybe so. My experience in the Western Balkans, which goes back quite a few years at this point, is that things only ever work if the United States and the European Union work together very closely. So that's what we need. What we do not need is two separate tracks with insufficient coordination. And I fully expect the US to come back to coordinate closely with us. And I think Joe Biden has talked about exactly that.
Now, the US President-elect Joe Biden is closely connected to the developments in the Balkans. And in July of this year, the president criticized the Trump administration for, if I may quote, failing to coordinate with European envoys, who have mediated the dialogue between Serbia and Kosovo in an attempt to reach an agreement, which would be the mutual recognition between the two countries. This must also be the goal of the Biden administration. However, where does Germany stand on the matter?
So basically, this is exactly the point. What you want to do is you want to bring the United States and the European Union together. And it's great to see that Joe Biden, who has so much experience in foreign affairs and who knows the Western Balkans, that he is talking about this already now, and that he's been talking about this kind of thing for months, basically. So we're ready to work very closely with the Biden administration on the Western Balkans, including on the dialogue between Pristina and Belgrade. For us in Europe, it's a strategic question. Having stability and moving to a situation that is more normal between Serbia and Kosovo is very important to us. And for the United States of America, in turn, it's also a legacy issue, because after all, the United States has invested so much in Kosovo and in the statehood of Kosovo. So I think basically the US will be looking to Brussels and to Europe to carry much of the burden, but I think they will be there as an active player and fully coordinated with the European Union. So I think that's a pretty good starting point.
Do you believe that Kosovo and Serbia will reach an agreement in the following 4 years of the Biden administration?
That's a good question. You know, I'm obviously German, and I was born in 1962. We had we had 45 years from 1945, the end of World War II, until the unification of Germany in 1990, where we did not have full sovereignty, where key issues of German statehood were not within our power to decide. So anything relating to Germany as a whole and the issue of Berlin was something that Germans themselves were not allowed to decide. People forget this. They think that somehow West Germany was a prosperous state and fully in charge of everything. Not true. So we lived under limited sovereignty for a long time. You know, whether you reach a full agreement covering all issues to the satisfaction of both sides, I think that's very ambitious. It's something we should be ambitious. We should work towards that. But I think the key thing is making progress, working in good faith, and addressing issues that are relevant to normal people so they can live their lives, so they can go about their business, so the economies can prosper. That's important, to show good faith. And you know, if both sides do that, then eventually you'll come to an agreement that covers everything. But I'm not even sure whether a full agreement, you know, the end of history kind of thing, whether that's the most important thing. The most important thing is to bring down the rhetoric, to make real progress, to help people go about their lives.
Now, President-elect Joe Biden has also quoted, and if I may quote, "A comprehensive solution which would lead to a mutual recognition, the preservation of sovereignty, the territorial integrity of the two countries, as well as the strengthening of their democratic institutions, is critical for Serbia and Kosovo to move forward. This solution would strengthen the security and prosperity of both countries and advance their aspirations for membership in the European Union and international institutions." Now, since you have been in a mission in Kosovo in the security sector governance, and you are well familiarized with the situation, do you believe there are any unsolved issues that would endanger the territory of Kosovo as well as its sovereignty?
So you're right. I served in Kosovo twice as part of KFOR. I was part of the first KFOR headquarters in the summer of 1999, and I returned as chief political advisor in 2001, 2002. And that was a very different time. Obviously, I don't have to tell you that. You know, I think that there shouldn't be any issues that are you know, that endanger the territorial integrity, or that you know, that should give rise to any kind of armed conflict between the two countries. All those issues can be dealt with if people act in good faith and if they act in the interests of people on both sides, in Serbia and in Kosovo. So I think there's no insurmountable issues. All of these things can be resolved.
The president of Serbia, Mr. Aleksandar Vučić, on November 12th of this year, stated that if an agreement is not reached between the two countries, there is danger for more conflict. Now, if the failure of these negotiations really happens, and indeed conflict erupts, whose responsibility will this be?
I think that's very dangerous rhetoric. I think that creates a kind of tension. It sets a timeline that in some ways appears a bit unrealistic. At the end of the day, it is the governments of Serbia and the governments of Kosovo that control the situation. If those two governments behave in a responsible way, there's absolutely no reason that there should be any type of conflict. And President Vučić seems very much in charge of things in Serbia, whether it's the security apparatus, whether it's having a majority in parliament. So I see, you know, he is in a situation where he can make sure that no conflict erupts, because I don't see anything that the Kosovo side would do as provoking an armed conflict between the countries. So I think this rhetoric is very unhelpful and dangerous.
Now, it is not quite public knowledge that Russia has an influence in the Balkans, particularly in Serbia. According to you, would a strong and close cooperation between the Biden administration and the European Union lessen Russia's influence in the Balkans?
I think that's true. I think the way I look at it, we should think of the interests of Kosovo and Serbia. We should think of the interests of the European Union and of the United States. And Our interest is to have stability, to have economic development and prosperity, and to bring Kosovo and Serbia closer to the European Union. That's what we should do. And by doing that, I think the influence of Russia will be lessened. And Russia in the past years has not been a constructive actor, and we should not give them space to interfere in the domestic issues of Serbia or Kosovo, or to make it more difficult for those countries to come closer to the European Union. So yes, we should work closely with the United States of America and help Kosovo and Serbia develop a more positive relationship. Absolutely.
Mr. Ambassador, the special court has filed an indictment against former KLA leaders, and among them is the now former president, Mr. Hashim Thaçi. As a result, Mr. Thaçi resigned from his post as president of Kosovo, while the Kosovar public has been overcome by a feeling of, let's say, peaceful anger towards the situation. And the general perception is that injustice has indeed been done. How would you comment on this situation?
Well, I think it's very good that President Thaçi stepped down from his position when he was indicted by the special chambers. For us in Germany, the rule of law is extremely important. It's important coming out of these conflict situations, and it's an important issue, as you can see in the discussion inside the European Union today. We have difficult discussions right now with Poland and Hungary. There's a situation in Bulgaria that people are commenting on. So the rule of law is extremely important. Upholding legal standards is important. And political leaders are well advised to make that a priority and to act accordingly. So I think it's correct that President Thaçi has stepped down and that the legal procedure will take its course. And we will see how it comes out. I think it would be inappropriate for me to comment on that.
This would be our last question, Mr. Ambassador. Is Kosovo at risk of losing its European perspective?
I don't think so. I think it is, both sides have to work. We in Europe have to be credible in terms of offering a perspective to Kosovo. That's difficult. It's not difficult because people don't want to be helpful or constructive. It's difficult because the European Union is struggling so much right now to maintain its position in the international arena, to be an actor that is credible. And every country we add as a member state increases the complexity of decision-making in the European Union. So I think that's why people have mixed feelings about going farther down the road towards enlargement. But we have a strategic interest in bringing the countries of the Western Balkans into the European Union because they are countries of Europe. We have promised them that they have the option of becoming member states of the European Union if they live up to the standards that we have articulated. And I think we need to keep that promise, and that will support economic development, and it will make the European Union stronger. But it's a difficult challenge. It's a bit squaring the circle in these days. But we should do our homework. We should be credible. And on your side, I think the homework is to be a credible candidate for the European Union as well. And once again, the rule of law is absolutely crucial in that regard. Democracy is absolutely crucial. An open society is crucial, where media can report and sort of exert some level of control and allow for public debate to happen. Those are very important things as well. So I think both sides have their work cut out.